الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله دائما لا إله إلا الله سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم آتنا أفضل ما تؤتي عبادك الصالحين. Make the last straight and open the gaps. Right into the best break.
Take like 3 steps to the left. Yeah. So like I'm centered.
الله أكبر.
Oh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم ذكرنا ما نسينا وعلمنا ما جهلنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من حال أهل النار نخلص نوايانا لله تعالى. I praise Allah, I glorify Him and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated to give anything. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and protect his Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah Ta'ala, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne like the Christians say, and He is not attributed with fatigue like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala is different than that, does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creation to Allah is not a Muslim. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get a reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise would be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So, alhamdulillah, insha'Allah, we're going to continue now reading from the book, The Lucid Word. If you don't have a copy, then you can contact me to see how you can get one. It's the easiest to get one if you're in the continental United States. For those that are abroad, we can try to figure something out. So we're on page 37. Right in the middle of the page, where the author said, among the examples of the first category of apostasy. But before that, we usually do a recap of the previous class that we had yesterday. So for those that they were here for that, for those that they that attended that class. So I'm going to ask some questions, and if you know the answer, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. All right. right. So, state a proof from the hadith that proves that some people, they speak carelessly to the extent that they say words that take them out of Islam without them even deeming such words as sinful. A hadith that proves that some people, they say things and they don't even know that it's bad, but because of it, they exit from Islam. You can say the meaning of the hadith in Arabic, in English, or even better, if you memorize the terms of it in Arabic, that would be an A++. But if you can quote the meaning of the hadith, that's also good. And whoever does, if nobody raises their hand, then I guess I'll call on them. I'll pick on them. And for the virtual, if you put a hand emoji, then I'll call on you. A hadith, okay, mashallah. So we have an answer, someone answered. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, a person might utter a word which he deems harmless, but because of it, he'll fall to 70 years into the hellfire. And the exact verbatim from the book is, a person may utter an expression that of kufr that they perceive harmless, however it results in their falling the depth of 70 years into the hellfire. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. And a follow-up question to this is, who narrated this hadith? Anyone here who narrated this hadith? Fadl. At-Tirmidhi. This hadith was narrated by At-Tirmidhi. Alhamdulillah. And follow-up is, what degree did At-Tirmidhi grade this hadith? This is important. Why? Because not every hadith can be used as a proof in the matters of the creed. It has to be a certain degree, a certain grade. Hadith Hasan. At-Tirmidhi said Hasan. So that's good. Now there's another narration that is narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. Who knows this narration? Whether in English or in Arabic, the meaning in English. It is, a person may utter an expression that they do not take heed of its consequence, by which they fall into hellfire, a depth which is farther than what is between east and west. That's the narration of Al-Bukhari. الحديث الذي رواه البخاري لفظه إن العبد لا يتكلم بالكلمة ما يتبين فيها يزل بها في النار أبعد مما بين المشرق والمغرب. موجود. Alright, another question. What is the definition of apostasy? The definition of ridda. Who can give us the definition of ridda? Whether in Arabic or in English. Fadl. Correct, a Muslim who blasphemes and goes out of Islam. So interrupting Islam by a kufr saying, belief or action. So that is the definition of ridda is leaving Islam. Now, another question here. Is it a condition if the person is angry and they say something that is blasphemous? Would their anger save them from falling into the judgment of blasphemy? Ummadiyan. No, it would not. That's correct. So, being angry is not a condition for the person to fall into blasphemy. So, if a person is angry and they say something that's blasphemous, or they do something that's blasphemous, or they believe something that's blasphemous, they would exit from Islam even if they were angry. Now, we've seen who has studied and who hasn't studied. And once again, for those of you that do not have copies of the book, just contact me or see me after, and we can arrange that, inshallah. So page 37, right in the middle of the page, and remember, whoever has the book, we're reading from below the line. So there's a line there, so we're reading everything below the line. We're reading the integrated text. So we're starting from right where the author says, among the examples of the first category. So we're going to start reading from there. The author said, among the examples of the first category of apostasy, i.e. kufr beliefs, are having doubt in the existence of Allah, His oneness, His non-resemblance to the creation, or doubting in the truthfulness of His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So these are some examples of things that if the Muslim, if he believes them, then it takes him out of Islam. And when we say doubt, it's important to shed light on what we mean when we say doubt. The doubt in Islam is something that actively occurs by the person's own volition. It's something that actively occurs within the person, they themselves. It's something that's happening that they are actively doing. And the doubt in Islam should not be confused with involuntary thoughts and whispers of the devil. Now, the involuntary thought is just a thought that pops into your mind. And that thought that pops into your mind, you're not accountable for that. You're not accountable just for the mere entering of that thought into your mind, because it wasn't with your volition. You're just sitting there, let's say, focusing on something, and then all of a sudden, boom, something pops into your mind. Just that by itself it has no effect on you. You're not accountable for that, because it happened without your will. It's not something that you did. It's something that happened to you that now, obviously, going forward, you have to deal with it. But just it existing in your mind, just it popping into your mind, you're not judged for that. You're judged for how you react to it. The other thing is the whisper of the devil. So the Prophet ﷺ, he has informed us that the shaitan, he puts his snout near the heart of the person and throws thoughts into it, whispers into it, right? Now, also, just those whispers of the devil entering into your mind, that by itself, also, you're not judged for that. You're judged for how you react to it. So sometimes the person, he'll get an involuntary thought that's ugly, an involuntary thought that's blasphemous, an involuntary thought that, let's say, contains the question, does God really exist or not? Since it's not your thought, the involuntary thought that enters into your mind, since it's not your thought, that's not doubting in the existence of Allah. It's just an involuntary thought that enters your mind in that form. Also the whisper of the shaitan, and usually it's the whisper of the shaitan. Because that's how the shaitan, he tries to take the Muslim out of Islam. The shaitan approaches the person, and because of the fact that you're not seeing anything, right? Because of the fact that you're not seeing something in front of you, speaking to you, whispering to you, suggesting to you. That's what the shaitan does. The main weapon of the shaitan is suggestion. And since the non-Muslims, they don't even have knowledge of that there is something called the jinn, and that they're invisible in their original form, and that they can whisper things to you. Since the non-Muslim doesn't even have knowledge of that, they don't even know that, they're not even aware of that, they think that those thoughts are their thoughts. And so if they get like whisper the shaitan, like, you know, kill this person or shoot up this Walmart, they're going to think like, hey, this is my thought, this is what I'm going to do, and this is my inclination, this is what I'm going to manifest. So that's why all these people, they do crazy things. That's part of the reason. A lot of it is that influence, that persuasion, that pushing. But for the Muslim, we know about the shaitan. We know that the shaitan whispers, and we know that in the original form, the shaitan, its original form, we don't see him, or that demon, or that shaitan, that devil. We don't see it whispering to us. We just get the thoughts. So in that case, what are we supposed to do when that whisper, let's say the shaitan, starts? And obviously sometimes the shaitan doesn't start with something obvious. The shaitan will start with who created the universe. And this is all in your mind. This is all happening in your mind. It's not like out loud. So the immediate response is Allah, who created the sun. Allah, who created the moon. Allah, who created the waterfalls and the mountains and all this beautiful scenery that you see around you. Allah. And then when the shaitan assumes that you have your guard down, the shaitan would whisper, who created Allah? Now here, if you don't react to it properly, if you don't deal with it properly, then possible blasphemy could occur. If you deal with it properly, then you just reject to that question, because that is the devil's question. Who created Allah is the devil's question. Because the person starts to think now and say, who created Allah? Now the person blasphemes. Subhanallah. That's how sick and evil the tactic of the shaitan is. Because just in that split second, when that person, then they took that thought and they reacted to it in that way and followed it and said, and thought to themselves, who created Allah? Now they blaspheme. Because now it's as if they believe that Allah has a creator, or that Allah at one point in time didn't exist. So this is why the Muslim, the creed of the Muslim, it's based in knowledge, and the creed of the Muslim is corroborated by the judgment of the mind, so that it's ironclad, it's firm, it's solid. There can be no shaking of this creed, because it's backed up by evidence. It's not just something like the non-Muslims, like the Christians and the Jews, they believe in things that it goes against the mind. It doesn't. They believe things that don't make sense. So that's why a lot of them, they have internal conflict, and that's why they have this thing called blind faith, because they just say, well, we believe in it even if it doesn't make sense. There's no way to explain it. They just believe in it, and that's what they call blind faith. But in Islam, we don't have that. In Islam, there's no such thing. In Islam, our creed, the fundamentals and the essentials of the creed, they're backed up by evidence, and they don't contradict the mind. So this is why we're solid and we're firm. So inshallah, one day we'll go into details about the evidence for the existence of God using the mind. But in short, the general evidence for that is, we say, for example, using yourself as an example, I was nothing, and then I became something. And I was non-existent at one point, you were nothing, and then I became existent. I had no choice in that. I didn't make my existence start. I didn't make my existence begin. I didn't make myself the way I am. I didn't specify myself with, being an embryo and then growing into a fetus, etc. I didn't specify, for example, my birthday. I didn't specify my gender, or the color of my eyes, or the color of my skin, or the environment I was born in, or the parents I was born to. That was all of that without your choice. And actually, it directly impacts you, too, also. What's the difference between someone that is born, let's say, in a war zone, and somebody that's born in the lap of luxury. Big difference. Directly impacts you. Something that you have to go through and live with, but not your choice. What does that mean? What does that prove? It proves that it was done to you. This was something that was done to you. It proves that this was something that you were specified with. Who specified you? It wasn't your parents. Your parents, they didn't even know what you were going to be. If you were going to be a male or a female, they didn't know what the color of your eyes was going to be, etc. They find out when they see you. So it wasn't them. They didn't specify your eye color. They didn't specify your skin color. They didn't specify your gender. They didn't specify your date of birth. The doctors told them, due date such and such, but that's just an approximation. Sometimes it's surprise, baby's here, baby comes out. Sometimes it's, due date, you passed it by a week, 2 weeks. So it wasn't them, it wasn't your parents who made you, who created you. They were part of the process. They were creations that were part of the process, but it's not like they're the ones who determined that you exist. Because how many people, they try to have a baby and they never do. If it was up to them, they just snap their fingers and, she's pregnant now. Or even more so, if it was up to them, the baby would just pop up. The woman wouldn't have to go through that difficult and stressful process of pregnancy. And ask any woman who's had a child, and they'll tell you, it's not fun. It's not fun. So, and what does that prove? That proves that, and also, and even going through the parents, at one point in time, they were born. So who created them? And you can't say their parents, because then who created them? And so on. You keep on going back until you get to a starting point. There has to be a starting point. That starting point, that thing that began, mentally speaking, it's impossible that it would pre-exist to make itself exist. That's how we know the Creator exists. Because the universe exists, and the universe at one point in time was nothing, and then it became something. What made it something? Not the universe itself, because, mentally speaking, it's impossible that the universe pre-exists before its existence to specify itself with existence. So use yourself as an example. I once was nothing, then I became something, and the one who created me, the one who made me, does not resemble me, is not like me, has no similarity to me, and the one who created me created everything else. Because everything around you is like you. Everything around you is similar to you. Everything around you is also in need of the one who made it how it is, made it what it is. Now, inshallah, after we finish this book, we'll go in depth about, we'll give more details about the mental proof for the existence of the Creator. But, so if the shaitan throws that thought into the person's mind, who created Allah? We say, A'udhu billah. We say, I seek refuge with Allah from the whispers of the shaitan. That's it, because there's no benefit in going back and forth with the devil. So, and if a person, this is an advice for anyone who has, they are plagued with whispers of the devil, one of the best things to do is to ignore and occupy yourself with something good. Ignore and start reciting Quran. Because look, this is how the devil looks at it. The devil, what they want is to make the Muslim's life miserable. If they can't get the Muslim to leave Islam, at least they want to annoy that Muslim and cause that Muslim to fall into sin and deter that Muslim from doing good deeds. So the shaitan works with these priorities. First, to get you to blaspheme, then to get you to be lazy in doing good deeds. No, then to get you to commit sins, and then to get you to be lazy in doing good deeds. So the thing that the shaitan does not want is for you to do good deeds. So if every time the shaitan starts whispering to you, automatically you ignore and you start to say reciting Quran or saying dhikr or doing some other act of worship, the devil's going to be like, I don't want this. So they're going to stop eventually. And just like if somebody was sitting next to you on the bench and they kept poking you and saying, for example, saying blasphemous things to you, and you ignore them, eventually that person's going to get annoyed and tired, and they're going to leave you alone because they see they're not getting a reaction out of you. So, what we're talking about here is the real doubt. Whoever has a real doubt about the existence of Allah. And there are people, and I've encountered these things. It's not like hypothetical scenarios. There are people that they identify as Muslim, or let's say they've grown up, let's say in a Muslim country, or with parents that are Muslim. They've grown up around Islam, but because of a lot of reasons, among them is that they've been poisoned by propaganda, and they've been exposed to the system of blasphemy, and they've been exposed to, they've ingested a lot of haram things growing up, etc. So their hearts have been poisoned, and they get affected by their environment, the bad environment that they're in. They get affected by what they see in the media. They get affected by the people who they're surrounding themselves with, which are mostly non-Muslim, let's say, if they're going to like a public school, etc. Or just they themselves are misguided, right? Because that's also possible. But they'll really say, how do we know that God exists, etc., etc.? They really doubt because they weren't educated properly Islamically, because they don't have the proofs, they weren't brought up in the proper way, and so they fall prey to the traps of the shaitan. So, and maybe it's the case that because of their deep ignorance, they also don't know that by doubting about the existence of God, by doubting does God exist or not, they go out of Islam. If they ever, for example, afterwards, they clear themselves of that doubt, but they didn't know that by doubting, they exit from Islam, and so they keep on living their lives without rectifying that. Because the way to rectify leaving Islam is by clearing oneself of the blasphemy and saying the Shahada to return to Islam. By having the correct belief, and by removing the blasphemous thing and reinstating the Islam by saying the Shahada. So that person, because they didn't even know that if they doubt about the existence of Allah, that they blaspheme or not, they continue their lives thinking that they're Muslim, and in reality they're not. So this is part of the reason, or one of the benefits of mentioning these things. So the one who doubts about the existence of Allah exits from Islam. The one who doubts about the oneness of Allah, they doubt, is Allah the only creator or not? They blaspheme. If someone doubts about the non-resemblance of the creation of Allah, somebody thinks, is Allah like a human or like a light or not? They blaspheme, they exit from Islam. If someone doubts about the truthfulness of the messenger of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they say, was Muhammad? If someone doubts that or says that, they exit from Islam. Or if they doubt about his messengership, they doubt, was Muhammad really a prophet or not? They exit from Islam. And again, that also can be corroborated using the sound mind. So we can prove that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is truly a prophet, and the way that we prove that is through the miracle, and the miracle is a mental proof that that person is telling the truth, because the miracle is a supernatural, extraordinary occurrence that occurs at the hands of someone claiming prophethood. And we'll explain more of that, inshallah, in future classes. But in brief, the Prophet ﷺ, he performed thousands of miracles, and some of those miracles were witnessed by a large number of people that it's normally impossible that they would conspire to lie about that, conveying that. And also, there is a perpetual miracle that is present with us, which is the Quran. And one of the aspects of the miraculousness of the Quran is that there's things mentioned in it, in the Quran, in detail and accurately, that was only recently discovered by what they call modern science within this century. And so it's impossible, they said, that a person during that time, or 1,400 years ago, that they would be able to know these things that are scientific, that are now today scientific facts. So that's one proof that the Quran is a miracle. Because had it not been for the fact that that information was revealed, then the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't know it. The author said, or having a doubt whether Al-Quran is from Allah or from Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have to know that the Quran was revealed to Muhammad by Allah Ta'ala. The person can't doubt and think that, did Muhammad come up with the Quran on his own? Did he make it up? This would be blasphemous if the person thought that. And there's different ways to prove that the Quran is not something that the Prophet ﷺ could have come up with. One of those is the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was not given the knowledge of reading and writing. So Allah Ta'ala, He created Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to not be able to read or write. And so this further solidifies and confirms that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not author the Quran. So anyone who doubts about any of these things that we mentioned until now, they would not be Muslim whether they embraced Islam yesterday or 10 years ago. Doubting about any of these things that we mentioned so far, whether the person was a new Muslim or not, they're not excused. The author said, or doubting whether or not the day of judgment will happen. Now, if a person, and once a Muslim becomes knowledgeable and learns, they will learn, or once a Muslim learns the basics, they will learn that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he told us that there's such a thing as Judgment Day. Once we know that this is the teaching of the religion, then there's no room to doubt about it anymore. Once we know, once it's confirmed to us that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us that there is such a thing as Judgment Day, then khalas, there's no room for doubt. So whoever doubts about whether or not Judgment Day will happen, they blaspheme. And this is one of the blasphemous creeds of the idol worshippers during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told them, there is a Judgment Day. There is a day in which you will be resurrected and you will be called to account for what you have done. And some of those idol worshippers, they said, that's far-fetched. They said, you're trying to tell me that after my body decays and I'm turned into dust, that I'm going to come back to life and then be judged? They thought it was far-fetched. So there's many verses in the Quran that are emphasizing the fact that the same one who has the power to create you from a drop of semen and make you go through those stages of growth until you're a fully formed human, a fully adult human, the one who made the skies as a canopy for the earth, the one who made the earth suitable for you to walk on, the one who made the mountains as stakes for the earth, the one who made the sun so vital to your existence in the exact way, is the same one who has the power to resurrect you after you die. And that's some of the logical rhetoric of the Quran that was directed towards the idol worshippers during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because they thought it was far-fetched that the person would be resurrected after they're dead. So that's why a lot of the idol worshippers, they had the creed of, we're just going to live it. We're going to live this life and do what we do, and that's it. After we die, that's the end. It's fade to black, and there's nothing after. But they're mistaken. And many people nowadays, many non-Muslims nowadays, the hedonists, they have this mentality. Many people that they indulge in the worldly desires, and they think that there will be no consequences afterwards. They have the same creed as those idol worshippers. They think that you just go through this life and all you got to do is, what they claim is live it to the fullest, and what they mean by living it to the fullest is indulging in as many carnal desires as they can. They think that you just do that and you do whatever and you kill whoever and you violate whoever and you do injustice to whoever and you take from whoever and you do bad things to whoever, and that's it. And the strong, they eat the weak, and that's it. Those people obviously they have a dire consequence after they die, because justice will be done. Each person that they are accountable, they will be judged for all of their deliberate actions, all of their deliberate thoughts. There will be no injustice left unsettled on Judgment Day. So for the Muslim, this is a great deterrent, because we feel things and we're inclined towards things, but the Muslim, because he knows that he's thinking long term, he's thinking that in the hereafter, there's no escape from my reckoning, from being called to account. There's no escape from being judged. There's no escape. Nothing is hidden from Allah. So the Muslim is the intelligent Muslim is wise. They think, I'm going to oversimplify, cry now and laugh later. So there's certain things in this life that the Muslim is not allowed to enjoy. However, that does not mean that the obedient Muslim's life is void of any enjoyment or happiness. It's just that there's certain things that we have to find our enjoyment in. There's a limit to the things that we can do that are fun or entertaining. As long as we can find our enjoyment in what is permissible and halal, then we're good. And there's plenty of halal things that are fun and entertaining to do and that are enjoyable. So the Muslim, his life is not a miserable life. His life is not one of misery and not having fun. But there are certain things that we can't do, certain things that we can't ingest, certain things that we can't partake in. And we're patient on those things, even if we were inclined to do them, because of the bigger payoff in the end. Because what the Muslim gets after he dies is greater than this whole entire world. Even if a person owned the whole entire world, it's not worth the enjoyment that they would get in the grave. And that's not even talking about paradise yet. The enjoyment that the Muslim receives in his grave is greater than this whole world. Is greater than anything you can get in this whole world. SubhanAllah. And any person that really looks at it objectively and doesn't take a genius to know this, that no matter how much you try to enjoy this life, and no matter even if you had $1 billion or $127 billion, even if you had Bezos money, then all this enjoyment that the person can have in this world is mixed together with discomfort and pain and sadness and other negative things. So even the enjoyment in this life is not completely free of discomfort or pain. So it's not worth that temporary enjoyment, that fleeting enjoyment. It's not worth it to have that enjoyment, that temporary enjoyment, at the risk of being punished in hellfire. So the Muslim is smart. The Muslim thinks ahead. The Muslim thinks long term. The Muslim knows that the things that he has to be patient on in this life, the things that are forbidden, it's not worth doing them for that short moment of pleasure that can lead to being tortured for a long time in hellfire. SubhanAllah. And also the Muslim thinks from an ethical standpoint, which is that my Lord, my Creator, forbade me, the one who gave me everything that I have, forbade me from doing such and such thing. So out of being a good slave, out of being a good creation, out of being grateful for the endowments that you receive, the person would deter themselves, because basically they don't have the right to disobey. SubhanAllah. The author said, we're doubting in paradise, hell, reward, or punishment, i.e. in their existence in the hereafter. So the Muslim, they have to know that paradise, hell, reward, and punishment, that they will exist in the hereafter for sure. So whoever doubts about it, they exit from Islam. Or having doubt in similar matters which there has been scholarly consensus and is commonly known among the Muslims to be of the religion. So there's certain matters in Islam that it's by unanimous agreement among the scholars of Islam that they will occur. or that they are things that in the religion that they all agree upon that are, this is the case. So whoever doubts about them, yani after knowing that these things are part of the religion, that they exit from Islam. Like for example, and we're gonna mention examples, and there's more examples coming. Likewise, blasphemes the one who believes the world is eternal by kind and elements, as some philosophers said, or by kind only, as said by other philosophers. What does that mean by kind and elements? So to make it easy to understand, humanity is the kind, and each individual human is the element, and the component. So for example, me and you and all of us here in this room and every single human on the earth, we make up what is called humanity. We're the individual components, the individual elements of this concept known as humanity. So whoever believes that this world, I mean the universe, this existence, if they believe that this existence is eternal by concept, by kind, or by element, yani by each individual component, that person blasphemes. What does that mean? So for example, if the person believes that the universe and all its individual parts and the concept of the universe, if they believe that this is eternal, yani without a beginning, then they exit from Islam because they have associated partners with Allah Ta'ala. Or if the person says, you know what, every single individual part of the universe has a beginning, but the concept of the universe, that has no beginning. Also they blaspheme. And so basically, without going too much into philosophy, because philosophy is, at its root, it's bad. The ancient philosophers, they used to believe that the universe and everything in it had no beginning, which is insane. So that's why the later philosophers, they said, you know what, I see that, the individual parts, because it's something that you sense with the physical senses, that each individual part, they're not eternal, they have a beginning. But they tried to say that the concept of the universe has no beginning. So it's as if, what are they saying? It's as if they're saying, before this universe, there was another universe. And before that universe, there was another universe. And before that universe, there was another universe. And so on and so forth, back in time until no end. Which is impossible. And it is also intellectually impossible. And it makes no sense. Because if it was the case that you can go backwards in time without an end, then the present wouldn't exist. Because infinity would have to end to get to now. It's something that the scholars of Islam, they talked about to refute the philosophers. And Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah followed them in this misguidance. So, that background information, that preface was to emphasize that this person, Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, he followed the later philosophers. Because what did Ibn Taymiyyah say? He said the arsh, that arsh that exists now, he said that arsh has a beginning. But before that arsh, there was another one before it. And before that one, there was another one before it. And before that one, there was another one before it. And before that one, there was another one before it, until no end. Which is blasphemous. Because to say that something other than Allah has no beginning is associating partners with Allah. And Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, that's what he said. And he wrote that in his books. I'm not slandering him. I'm not making it up. That's what Ibn Taymiyyah said. He said that about the Arsh in many different books. So it's not like, for example, it was somebody that they added it to his book. Because in the past, before there was a printing press, how were books distributed, or how were copies of books, how were they made? You had the original manuscript that was authored by the author's hand, or it was the author dictated it to a scribe, right? That scribe wrote it down. And then that original manuscript was taken to a group of scribes, and what would they do? They would copy it. They would just copy it by hand. So that's how it used to be in the past. And in the past, if a scribe was vile and wicked, they would change something that they were copying. Sometimes they did it on purpose and with evil agendas, and sometimes it was because of their ignorance. Because they thought, for example, that a certain word in the original manuscript was spelled wrong, or they thought that the word was a different word, and they just changed it themselves. They took it upon themselves to supposedly edit, when in reality it was right from the beginning. So sometimes in some of the works of the true and credible scholars of Islam, sometimes that there are those mistakes in the original manuscript where a scribe, not in the original, sorry, the copy that was copied by a scribe, sometimes something would be inserted against the knowledge of the author, and sometimes the scribe would just make the mistake. Sometimes the scribe would, let's say, skip a whole entire line, just because, like, if you're working as a scribe, you're working long hours, working by candlelight, you're looking up, you're looking down, you're looking up, you're looking down, and sometimes you lose your place and you skip a whole line. That even happens with computers. If you're like typing something, you're copying something from something, you're typing it. Even sometimes on the same computer, you have it like, one on top of the other, and you're copying, let's say. Sometimes you skip a line. So it happens. But that's not what happened with Ibn Taymiyyah. This case that Ibn Taymiyyah claims that the Arsh has no beginning, and the concept of the Arsh has no beginning, that's not something that was inserted into one of his books. It's not like a scribe made a mistake, or a scribe maliciously inserted into his book to attribute it to Ibn Taymiyyah. This is something that has been confirmed, that Ibn Taymiyyah himself, he wrote that. And why is that the case? Why did Ibn Taymiyyah do that? He did that to supposedly try to escape from a corner, from being cornered, from being intellectually cornered. Because there are certain people, they're known as anthropomorphists, they're known as body worshippers, people who they believe that Allah is like a body. And these people, they're not Muslims, but they call themselves Muslims. They affiliate themselves with Islam. And these people, they believe that Allah is physically residing above the Arsh. And which is not the creed of the Muslims. It's not the creed that Prophet Muhammad came with. This is a creed that this movement gained a lot of traction about about the year 1100. About the year 1100 after the Hijrah. Right now we're in the year 1442, so about 400 some years ago, this movement gained traction. A man named Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he came and he revived some of these teachings of Ibn Taymiyyah. And one of the things that Ibn Taymiyyah would say is that Allah is physically sitting on the throne. And which is blasphemous, obviously. Because whatever is sitting somewhere, whatever is sitting in a place, it is a creation. It is not the creator. So Ibn Taymiyyah, he went as far as to say that Allah sits on the throne and he leaves a space of 4 fingers so that Muhammad will sit next to him. This is written in his books. It's not like we're making it up. This is not, we don't slander people, even if they're evil. We don't say things that are not true about someone. So Ibn Taymiyyah, obviously, he can't get around a simple question. Does the Arsh have a beginning or not? He can't get around this question. Because naturally he has to say yes, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said it explicitly. كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْءٌ غَيْرُهُ. Allah existed without a beginning and nothing else existed. Meaning no Arsh. Because the Arsh is not Allah. Allah existed eternally without a beginning and nothing else existed. That nothing else includes the Arsh. So, if it's the case that Allah existed before the Arsh, without the Arsh, then after Allah created the Arsh, His existence didn't change. But those people that are body worshippers, they have this obsession with believing that Allah is physically above the Arsh. But we tell them, well, before Allah created the Arsh, He existed without it. without being in need of it. And after He created it, His existence didn't change. Before Allah created space and direction and location, He existed without it. And after He created those things, His existence didn't change. And this is coinciding with the creed of Islam. But these people, because they're obsessed with believing that Allah is physically above the Arsh, they say, no, Allah is physically above the Arsh. And they misinterpret certain verses of the Quran to try and corroborate their belief. But inshallah, one day we'll talk more in depth about that. But so whoever believes that the concept of the Arsh has no beginning, then they have blasphemed. Likewise, denying one or more than one of the 13 attributes of Allah, which are confirmed by consensus that He is attributed with, such as being omniscient, meaning all-knowing, omnipotent, meaning has power over all things, all-hearing, all-seeing, alive, or attributed with will, or a willer. And the footnote says attributed with will. So if someone denies or doubts about any of that, they would not be Muslim. Also, ascribing to Allah what does not befit Him by consensus, such as being a body, i.e., for one to believe that Allah is a body that has length, width, and depth. Also, and somebody can't say, oh, well, I believe that Allah is a body that does not have length, width, or depth. Well, by definition, whatever does not have length, width, or depth is not called a body. So you can't say He's a body but not a body. You can't just, the word body cannot be applied to Allah. Also, it is kufr to attribute powerlessness, ignorance, and death to Allah because it entails belying the religion. Also, those are attributes of defects. Those are defects. Those are weaknesses. And saying that about Allah is blasphemous. Also, legitimating what is unlawful by consensus and commonly known among the Muslims to be unlawful, i.e., its unlawful character is famous among the scholars as well as the commonality, while it is known by the legitimizer to be unlawful under religious law, such as adultery and fornication, sodomy, killing unjustly, stealing, and forcefully taking money of others unjustly. So there are some things that are known to both the scholars among the Muslims and the laymen among the Muslims. They are known to be forbidden, and it's known that it's haram. There are certain things that every Muslim knows it's haram, and basically virtually every Muslim knows it's haram. So if a person legitimizes and says that that thing is halal, then they exit from the religion because it's as if they're saying that God is wrong. However, if the person was a new Muslim who did not know that these acts were prohibited and said about them that they are permissible, this person does not fall into kufr. Because in this case, the only way that a person would know if these things are forbidden is if he were taught, is if he learned it, if he knew it. Because had he known it, then he would not have legitimized it. Because he wants to be Muslim. But the one who knows that Islam says it's haram, and still on top of that he legitimizes it, then he exits from Islam. Because it's as if he's saying, God is wrong. God judged that drinking alcohol is forbidden. Who are you to say that it's halal? God judged that eating pork is forbidden, meaning not okay, meaning bad, meaning unethical, meaning sinful. So who are you to say it's okay or good or rewardable? For example, these are examples. And because almost everybody knows that Islam forbids, for example, fornication, stealing, killing unjustly, etc. Likewise, to deem unlawful what is commonly known among the Muslims to be lawful, i.e., knowledge of its lawfulness is unequivocally known among the Muslims to be part of the religion. This is the case if the prohibitor of the lawful act knows that it is lawful, such as selling and marriage. Whoever deems them forbidden becomes a kafir. So, conversely, if someone knows that there's something in Islam that is commonly known among us to be lawful, then whoever contradicts it and belies it and says that it's unlawful, they exit from Islam. But with the condition again that they know that Islam says that it's lawful. Like selling in marriage. It's known among Muslims that it's okay to buy and sell as long as it's going according to the rules. And the Muslims know that it's okay and good and lawful to get married. And as long as it's done properly, within the rules. So whoever denies that, then they blaspheme. Likewise, renouncing the obligation of the matters which are by consensus and commonly recognized among Muslims to be as such, i.e. they are well known among the scholars and lay Muslims to be obligatory, such as the 5 obligatory prayers or one of their prostrations, the obligation of zakah, fasting of Ramadan, pilgrimage, and ablution. Hence, whoever believes any of these matters are not obligatory becomes a kafir. And we all know that we have to pray 5 times a day. So somebody comes and says, no, you don't have to pray 5 times a day. You can choose to if you want. It's optional. Then they exit from Islam. And likewise with these obligations that are by consensus. Likewise, deeming obligatory the matters which are not obligatory by consensus, such as requiring an additional rak'ah to the 2 rak'ahs of the obligatory dawn prayer. So likewise, if somebody adds something, they try to say about something in Islam that doing it is an obligation. When Islam says it's not an obligation, then the person blasphemes by that also. The example that's given here is like saying, instead of praying the dawn prayer 2 rak'ahs, that you have to pray it 4. So that person, what are they saying? They're saying that, again, it goes back to the person as if they're saying God is wrong. Because Allah judged that the dawn prayer is 2 rak'ahs. Likewise, renouncing what is by consensus religiously exhorted as such, i.e. its exhortation is unequivocally and definitely known by the Muslims, such as the supererogatory prayers associated with the ritual prayers, rawatib and witr prayers. And what do they mean by exhorted? It means that it's religiously praised, religiously good. And it's religiously, the religion encourages us to do it. Like the optional prayers that are associated with the ritual prayers. We have 5 daily prayers that we do. And then there's certain prayers that are associated to those prayers that is good that we do them, but they're not an obligation. Like for example, like for the dawn prayer, the fajr prayer. It's mentioned in the hadith, the one who prays 2 rak'ahs before they pray the obligatory dawn prayer, the reward of it is greater than this world times 10. Allahu Akbar. So before you pray the fajr prayer, how long is it going to take you to pray 2 rak'ahs? 1 minute? Not even? A minute and a half? And what's the reward that you get for that? You get the reward that's greater than this world times 10. So it's known that the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged us to do it. This is something that we're encouraged to do. So if someone tried to say it's not good to do, or they try to say that it's not something that we're encouraged to do, they blaspheme. To intend to commit kufr in the future, such as if someone intends to do so the following day or in a month or a year or more, then they become a kafir instantly. Like if somebody says, next year I'll become a Christian, they become a kafir right away. If someone says, for example, in 10 years I'll leave Islam, they become a kafir instantly. They leave Islam instantly, right in the moment. Because why? Because we have to have the firm intention to remain upon al-Islam until we're dead, as is evidenced by the verse وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, which means remain Muslim until death. Or if one also, somebody blasphemes, if they intend to do any of the aforementioned kufr matters or hesitates in doing so, such as saying in one's heart, should I or should I not do that, then one becomes a kafir immediately. But not the mere involuntary thought of it, because this does not nullify the Muslim's faith. For example,
If an intrusive and involuntary thought entailing the renunciation of the existence of Allah occurs in one's heart while believing firmly in the truth, then one does not become a kafir, because the involuntary thought does not negate certainty. And we already explained that right at the beginning of the class. Also, to deny the companionship of our master Abu Bakr, may Allah raise his rank, this is kufr, owing to the denier's repudiation of Al-Quran, because Allah stated his companionship explicitly in the Quran. And if somebody says Abu Bakr wasn't from the Sahaba, he wasn't a companion, then this person is belying an explicit ayah in the Quran. That takes him out of Islam. To deny the prophethood of whomever is recognized by consensus among Muslims as a messenger or a prophet, such as Adam, Musa, Isa, and Muhammad, peace be upon them, and may Allah raise their ranks. To reject a letter of Al-Quran which is confirmed to be a part of it by consensus, i.e. rejecting it while knowing that it is a letter of Al-Quran, or to add a letter to it which is by consensus not recognized as part of it, i.e. Muslims unanimously do not consider this addition to be part of the Quran, provided he added it with the conviction that it is part of it out of stubbornness. However, if their extraneous addition was due to his belief that it is part of the Quran, out of ignorance, that he is not judged with kufr. Like if somebody thinks that, they tried memorizing, for example, a surah, and now their memory of that surah was rusty, and they recited an ayah from it, adding an extra word. They thought that that was part of the verse, right? So out of ignorance, they said, they believed that that word that they added was part of it. In this case, they don't blaspheme because it was out of ignorance, and they thought that it actually was a part of the Quran. Not in the case where the person knows it's not a part of the Quran and they add something to it. And we'll stop here for today. I try to keep the classes only an hour long. We didn't start right at 8:30 because we had to pray, but inshallah the prayer will be in earlier so that we'll be able to pray and be online by 8:30. Barakallahu feekum. Does anybody have any questions? No. So the question is, if someone denies the companionship of our master Abu Bakr without knowing that it's mentioned in the Quran, and I'll add, without knowing that this is what the Muslims believe, they don't blaspheme. Because this is something that you can only know through learning. No. Speak.
If somebody intended that they're going to blaspheme in so matter how situation.
Right. They blaspheme immediately. So the question was, if someone makes their blasphemy contingent upon the occurrence of something in the future, like they say to themselves, if such and such thing happens, then I will leave Islam, they blaspheme immediately. No. Any others? طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. For those of you that have not gotten your copies, I urge you to get your copies. Whoever virtually wants to get one, just private message me and we can arrange it, inshallah. بارك الله فيكم.